The International Association for Near-Death Studies presents NDE Radio, a weekly exploration of near-death experiences and similar encounters with the other side. Now, here's your host, Lee Witting.
Welcome to NDE Radio, brought to you by IANS, the International Association for Near-Death Studies. I'm your host, Lee Witting. Our guest today, Dr. Lib Liberatore, is a retired specialist in orthodontics. He graduated from St. Michael's College in Vermont and from the University of Pennsylvania as a DMD and established a practice in Brewer, Maine in 1973. 8 years later, he went to Boston University and completed a 2-year residency in orthodontics and returned to Maine, for which we are very thankful. Maine has such a shortage of dentists, and established a specialty practice here in orthodontics. Lib married his wife, Jean, in 1974. They have 4 grown children. He became involved with Brewer youth hockey and became an on-ice coach, but had to retire in 2010 when he lost his left leg after many surgeries, and his remaining leg has undergone multiple surgeries. For the past 5 years, Lib has been volunteering at Mana, a Bangor soup kitchen where he entertains on the piano with ragtime, boogie-woogie, and catchy tunes, much to the delight of all. And I should add that that soup kitchen is now operating out of my church, and Lib is playing my late mother Grace's Baldwin piano. 2 years ago, as the result of a stroke, Lib experienced an NDE. Lib, welcome to NDE Radio.
Thank you, Lee, and a special thank you to your mother, Grace, for that piano.
Oh, I thank her every time I hear you play. Lib, you told me that your NDE did not change the direction of your life, which I know has happened for many experiencers, but rather affirmed it. So what was it in your pre-life, your pre-NDE life that formed your philosophy?
Well, I went to a Catholic high school. I went to a Catholic college. I kind of had a very spiritual bent, and I really tried to, I knew my religion, and I became interested in other religions and what was the basic thing, and it always boiled down to me very simply, just be good to each other, to help those that have less, and to try to be moral and upright. So it was, for me, the NDE was just a sort of a confirmation. I really didn't think I was coming back, and I really wasn't looking to come back. I was, after multiple surgeries, and I, in the NDE itself, they showed me that I was having a stroke in my brain and that I would wake up and be partially blind, if not completely blind, over time. So I guess I would say that I knew where I was going, and I was kind of looking forward to it, so that I was done with the difficulty in walking and what have you. I had being aware of what to do, how to make choices throughout your life, gave me a life that I didn't have a regret. I didn't need to come back and correct something, and was actually quite upset to be back because I knew I would then have to learn how to deal with my blindness and learn how to deal with, which thankfully the only effects from the stroke were on my optic centers in my brain. So I could still walk, even though I have a prosthesis. My left leg is an above-knee amputation. I had learned how to walk, and I like to do construction work and work on my camp and work around the house, and have a couple of properties that I've worked on, and I was able to accomplish all of that again. But with so for me, the NDE was really, I know that there's life after death. It's not, they're not just turned into dust or stone. That's the end of your body. But your consciousness, what you came here to learn, to work on, all of that is still the same. You can pick up any good book and be able to gain the information that I gained from my experience. And that's why I say it's more of a confirmation than a revelation. Mm. But I worked with people that died. I worked in hospitals. I've worked then in different areas. And so a lot of people do not want to talk about death. A small group do, and I guess that's why I'm speaking to you. I have no worries about passing over. Mm. I'm very comfortable with that concept. And I'm 69, and because of all the multiple surgeries, I'm always in a very precarious position.
Lib, what do you remember about your NDE? What did you see when you were on the other side?
It was actually I would call it a transport vehicle. In the old days, it would be the chariot. I would think in the 1800s, it would be symbolic of a train. For me, what I remember is that it was it's a very deep pulsating sound. It was like you'd get in an MRI machine. And I'm watching what I would call standing waves. Similar to Star Trek, this is what it was for me. Okay, in that the vehicle was being assembled. It was a projection from somewhere else. And I did not see any other people, but they were people speaking to me. And then I was out of my body, and I was looking at kind of a diagram of my body, and I could see they looked like little shots of lightning were coming from my leg, traveling up. Then my chest cavity was illuminated, and then it went up and illuminated my head. And then I was looking at an MRI machine, the screen, what they see when they're imaging your body. And they were my two optic centers, and I began to watch them dwindle in brightness. They went from being bright, and I knew that this was referring to me having a stroke, and it was attacking my optic processing centers, which by the time I then got to the hospital and I got in the MRI machine, that's really what they found. So it was, and at the same time, they were saying, just lean back. And so for me, when I take an airplane flight, just before takeoff, I like to sort of put my head back, and I can actually fall asleep quite quickly. But what I did was I said to myself, my thoughts went to my wife, my companion, and mother of all these years. And it was just that all the times that we've held hands and we've been together, and boom, the vibration stopped, and I was suddenly sitting on the sofa, wrapped in my quilt. And I was really, I finally yelled out to my wife, and she came down, and but I was really, I was happy to go, which is a weird sort of thing, because I didn't fear death, and I was blind, and it was just like what I had seen. So then for me, the big thing was, well, now what do I do? And what I found was that you just go back and keep doing for me, I was doing. I mean, I had used to played hockey. I coached hockey. Aside from being an orthodontist and a father, I was very active. I used to walk to and from work, which is what amazed me when I actually had trouble with my legs, because I've been up on Katahdin, I've been out in Western Maine, I've done all of that stuff with my legs that was in great shape, I thought, but it wasn't to be. So I guess if somebody has that experience in their back, evidently there's reasons that I still, I didn't get in. I like to laugh. I like to say that it's because I play the piano too loud, and they're not ready for that kind of ruckus up there. So, but the really difficult thing was that I had to figure out how to still be purposeful.
Did they give you any guidance when you heard those voices? Did they give you any direction as to what to do with the rest of your life?
No, they said, aside from saying lean back, just lean back, they told me not to touch. There was I said I was watching them build standing waves, and there was this like liquid silver force, and they were getting in syncopation, and I understood it as being probably like a cage, your magnetic trap, like you talk about in physics. And I other than the fact that when I leaned back and I thought about my wife and was just sending her my love, and it all stopped. Mm-hmm. So, no, they didn't say, don't do this or don't do that for me. And that's why I think it was more of an affirmation, but they just weren't looking for your piano player, I guess.
Well, also, in your role as a doctor, you were probably interested in examining all of the insights that they were giving you as to your own body. What was happening there? Yeah. Yeah, yes, absolutely. That's why I had once read somewhere that people report different vehicles, and it's due to their experiences. I'm familiar with physics and chemistry and math and medicine, and so there's a whole range. And so for me, it was, and I used to love watching Star Trek. But it was more on that, only a real and sophisticated way of standing waves. That's all I can call it. It was being constructed right around me. And the only things they said was one, lean back, and the other was don't touch those. So, no.
But other than that, they didn't. I wish they had told me a couple of lottery numbers to play, but.
Well, people sometimes talk about having additional insight or gifts when they come back, or just a different focus in their lives. Did you notice any differences there?
No, because I really think that I was blessed with a wonderful wife and great mother to the kids, and I have degrees from 3 universities, 3 different cities, and I have all this work experience. And no, it was just that's why I say it was a confirmation. I didn't hear anybody say, "Oh, geez, not him." Boy, we're going to have. You've got a lot to learn. It was really just. It was going to be, and I would have passed away. I would have been aware of what was occurring, and I was looking forward to actually, metaphorically speaking, I was waiting for the elevator doors to open.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that some musicians have told me about the experience that's typically described as going into the light. For musicians, sometimes it's going into the music, and they bring back reports of this most amazing, beautiful music, the most beautiful music they've ever heard. And so I guess it's all of these experiences are, even though they're universal, they're very personal as well. They're almost designed for the person who is going through the experience.
Well said. Very well said. Yes, I agree with that 1,000%. And mine was more, I like to build, I like to rebuild, I like to remodel. So I'm always looking at what's underneath.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess for me, what captured my interest was unless you've been in an MRI machine, it's really hard to explain the low frequencies that you experience. Some might consider it music, but for me it was like this whole thing was pulsating and very nicely. I didn't hear any music. Like I said, I think it's because they didn't want to hear mine.
Well, I guess so, God's vibrations can be understood in many different ways. But you know what an affirmation to have gone through an NDE and come back and realize that your life has been going in the right direction all along.
Yes, it was very nice, very sobering, but a great affirmation. But I'll also tell you that when you come back, nobody wants to talk about that. You learn very, very quickly to just keep it out of sight, I guess you'd say. It's not the kind of conversation that even at a dinner party, people lean forward and say, tell me about it. So I just, when you have that experience, it's deeply personal, and I guess that's where it should be. If I hadn't met you, and if I hadn't been able to play so often on your mother's piano, I probably would have declined wanting to be interviewed. Just because I didn't think that it was relevant to me, and those people that already have that understanding, it's relevant to them in their own way. And for people that are just curious, I would just say that there's no big secret. It's how you treat other people. And
yes.
You spend a life just trying to be helpful. That it's a no-sweat transition.
And yet, I find as a chaplain, especially dealing with palliative care patients, that these stories are so reaffirming, especially to people who were not raised in any kind of religious tradition and are truly frightened about the notion of dying, that these stories are so reaffirming that I really do welcome people talking about them. I'll always lean forward and say, tell me about it, if I hear that someone's had an NDE.
Yes, well, because because I was able to have experience with people that were in that same situation. I wasn't a chaplain, so most of the times I would be in orderly, working my way through school. You know, they don't call them orderlies anymore, but those are like the male nurses, the CNAs of today. For those people that were thoughtful throughout their life, the concept is a lot easier for them to embrace than if they were mostly focused on material. They were focused on this world. They were very attached to this world. And they gave very little thought to spirituality, that it was foo-foo and it was really just a waste of time because, you know, this is it. You have one life and that's all, and you might as well be in the best possible position, that sort of stuff. Then that when they get close to dying and your mind and your soul starts to reflect over your life, then they might have a few more regrets. So it can be a wake-up call. It can definitely, I can understand that. You know?
Right.
And, I mean, we are not alone. We never were, and we're just as much alive, and even more so when we're on the other side than we are here in a physical body.
Mm. Well, in the way that we're treating the environment these days, I mean, when you were more active, you loved nature and you loved to be outdoors. And we hear these stories now about the, creatures that we've loved our whole lives going, nearing extinction. It can be so depressing. And you'd think if people had the bigger picture that their lives, this materialism that we fill our lives with is so temporary and our spiritual nature is the key, that we would be kinder to the planet, kinder to each other.
True, but that's always the case. I mean, we are, I think that we're evolving. We always evolve. And we either gain or lose in terms of civilization, but there's a forward process that's occurring, and I think it's part of the mental side. What really comes down is to how you treat one another, and then everything else from climate to what have you, all intertwined. And I know that it'll continue to go on. I mean, I'm just down here for the ride. That's all. And then same with my children, and then their children. We're much closer to the battlefront between good and bad, intelligent and ignorant. We do things because they're out of ignorance. Go toxic on our streams because it's cheaper than doing it, cleaning it up. You take it, you want to give it back better than it was, But I think that it's a lot of civilization now has that concept, and a lot of places really do try. It's a big planet, but we're running out of places to dump our garbage.
Yeah.
And if we didn't have trash pickup here in Bangor, my God, we'd have a huge pile of refuse.
I know what, when it's broken down in various places, garbage men go on strike in New York City, for instance, the way the waste accumulates on the streets is just unbelievable.
But they have a right to bargain for better conditions. It's I think both from this side and especially from the other side, you can see both sides in a conflict.
Yes.
And I think that makes a difference. I think here we're closer to the problem, and we don't always have enough distance to understand there's always room for some compromise. And there's always the technology that would be developed to reprocess waste needs to be, there's a huge area there for knowledge to be expanded. So I'm pretty confident that, they didn't send me back with any messages, about this or that. And, I still put my trash out by the curb, and I'm thankful that someone else takes it away.
Oh, sure. I want to ask you something, Lib, about, to change the subject a little bit. You were raised in a traditional religion, and you were comfortable with your NDE, but do you, coming back from that, do you see any ways that religions could be improved?
There's no sense fighting over it. if all religions hark back to the fact that there's a creator, if they all point to the same thing, then they become possessive. It's their God. And they forget what God really said. And they forget what good men God sent down to teach people. Because then what happens is they become followers of that person and really begin to forget the messages. If you're all just nice to each other, it'll all work out. But that's just for me. I don't see how I can change any religion. It's not a religion. It's the people that want to follow something. They don't want to think about things. They just want to belong to something.
Mm-hmm. So it becomes more a social concern than a personal spiritual one.
That and the fact that it's not a good idea to give away your ability to do your own thinking.
Do you see war as a result of partially as a result of different religious beliefs?
I see it more as good or evil. Those that want to, I don't know. That bothers me, because if you just stay with the basic tenets, and we have enough food that we grow already. It's just being held back. It's people that the regimes that stop their own people from receiving food. It's not so much we don't have an abundance, it's that there are people that are choking off what other people need.
Mm.
So, and then after that, it gets just, for me, many, many, many good men have tried to solve those problems, and it's because of the evilness and meanness and incompassion of others that really, I think, create the problem. So it's not the religion. You can wear any kind of coat you want, but in truth, we're all the same.
Yes. I love the fact that Bill Ray does such a wonderful job feeding the homeless and the hungry through manna, and that you come in and supplement that food with the spiritual edition of music that you're playing. It's just a perfect combination for people that aren't really being denied a lot of things.
Thank you very much, and I absolutely agree that Bill Ray, what he does is he always takes my breath away, and the people that he helps are wonderful. I get to know them as people. I get to know them that it's so difficult to explain for me that it's a wonderful experience for me. We had talked earlier that my parents were against me being a musician. They said a dentist can play the piano, but a piano player cannot do dentistry. And here on the radio, I should say that my parents were quite correct, and that I held a grudge against them for a good part of my life, but I kind of kept at it anyway. And now here I am, and I'm still useful and productive, and it's nice to sit down and listen to myself play and practice and work on it and see that it makes other people happy. They shake my hand, they give me a hug. I feel very honored to be able to do that. And that's all because of Dr. Robert Bach. You know Bob Bach.
Oh, yes.
He's a palliative care doc, and he sort of tricked me into going to Manna. He said, they come, they eat, they leave. They have a piano there. Maybe if you play some of your ragtime, they'd stay. So we went. And,
excellent.
Yeah. So, I mean, and it was a terrible spin it. And then we bought a keyboard, and that was better. But play on your mother's piano, with such a beautiful voice, and to play in that church, the acoustics are so awesome. And I'm happy. I have no desire to go play in a bar. I have no desire to go play anywhere else. I played a couple of times at nursing homes, but Manor has been pretty much where I got my musical chops.
Yeah, so, that's great.
Lib,
I'm afraid we have run out of time. A half hour goes very quickly, but I want to thank you for sharing your story with us today.
You're welcome. I just think everybody should just be nice to somebody. And
absolutely.
Feel the effect. Yeah.
To the audience, if you'd like to listen again to this or any of our past shows, just go to our website at nderadio.org. For more information about IANDS, check out that website, iands.org. And tune in next Monday, 11 a.m. Eastern, for more NDE Radio. This is Lee Witting saying thanks for listening.